Hi everyone, this is your favorite friend Jay or Jaylan Salah as you formerly know her, film critic at In Session Film, Geek Vibes Nation, and Keith Loves Movies. Today I have the pleasure of interviewing Leah Saint Marie, producer, writer, director, but also 15-year 35mm projectionist, which is something that intrigued me as I was scrolling through my Twitter feed. I want to know all about her. She has a background as an investigative journalist as well. Today she is starting her GoFundMe campaign for directing a new film. So I want to know all about her and I can't wait to introduce you to her. Leah, it's so fun and nice to talk to you.
Oh, thanks for having me on. It's wild that we got connected.
It is really. Okay, so when I read your background, I realized that you have lived a lot of lives. First of all,
Yeah.
you've been a projectionist for 15 years, but you
Yeah.
also were an investigative journalist on the topic of female serial killers. So I want to know, okay, what did you bring from that into the table?
Okay, so I do have a background in investigative journalism. I worked with the Innocence Institute, which was a nonprofit at Point Park University. And what was special about that program was it was journalism based. So our school and the Chicago school were the only two schools in America that are journalism based. All of the other Innocence projects are lawyer based. And so I got to work with a team of 10 other journalists helping exonerate wrongfully convicted individuals. During that time, I was also earning my master's degree in communications and journalism. And as part of that, I was going through a criminology program and I did my master's thesis on female serial killers. And I took that work and I applied it to writing a movie that's now out on Shudder called Spoonful of Sugar.
Wow. Okay, can you tell me more about this movie because I really want to watch it?
Okay, so you should really like sexual thrillers or horror films, and that's what Shudder is a platform for horror. And so I really wanted to play around with the idea of, in my research, a lot of times people just didn't believe that women could do such violent things. And it was very interesting because there's one case in particular that I studied called the Giggling Granny, and she had killed, I think her kill count was close to 100 men. And when she was being arrested, she just kept laughing about it. And the arresting officer then testified in court during her trial on her behalf, still saying that women aren't violent. I said, and I just thought that's such a really interesting idea that you can be someone so immersed in law and law enforcement and still advocate on behalf of the woman whose crimes you saw. And I took all of that and I put it against the background of what is it also like to be a mother and how kind of horrifying it is to love someone so much. And the story follows those themes.
Wow. Okay, so I love that you bring in the idea of motherhood too, because I read about your poetry collection. And as a
Oh,
poet myself, seriously, I can't wait to buy it. It's called The Eaton. And I think
yeah.
I have similar, like for me, the idea of motherhood, pregnancy, and all these things are so scary. I haven't had a child, but I co-parented at a time in my life. And I realized the idea that you could have so much instinctual love, and at the same time, you might not even have it of your own. Like it's a very, very complex and diverse and kind of
So,
troubling topic.
yeah.
And usually it is treated as if it's something either saintly or it's something that we all go through it because we can. I'm childless by choice. I don't think I will be a mother, but I have motherly instincts in different ways. So I want to know what drew you to write The Eaten, which sounds amazing and scary at the same time.
Oh, thank you. It took 20 years to write that book, and I think it took so long to write that book because it's so very difficult to break into the publishing industry. I tease people and I say that it's much easier to make a feature film than it is to break into the industry for publishing. And point in case, it took 20 years to make the book. But yeah, the themes
I
of
agree.
motherhood, it's so complex and it's so like it's so interwoven with femininity and identity, and those two things are very separate. And the book touches upon being childless by choice or abortion or trigger warning, rape. And it follows just like, what is it like to live a life as a woman?
True.
Hard and difficult and violent and full of sex and need and wanting and all of the things that make us such complex beings. So if you like all of those things, you'll like my book.
Obviously, I this is like my territory, so I'll definitely hunt this one down.
Great.
Okay, so from The Eaten and from your horror film and from your like investigative journalism career, and then you're a projectionist for 15 years, which is stability for Leah. I want to know, first of all, how did you start the career and why?
Oh yeah, so my dad owned two different movie rental houses when I was growing up. And so my house was always filled with VHS and beta tapes. And when my parents divorced, I lived with my dad and he was at work a lot. So I got to watch everything I ever wanted without parental guidance and without anybody to tell me what was good or wasn't good. So I watched everything. And still to this day, if I'm at a movie theater, I just am in the mood to watch a movie. It doesn't matter what it is. If it's the right timing, I'll go watch it. My love of movies started there. And then my dad would, when my brother and I were very young, he would give us $10 to go to the cinema and we would walk from his workplace to the cinema. We were 10 years old and we would time it out so that we could watch at least 5 movies in one day. And it was
Wow.
our babysitter. And that movie theater was the movie theater that I would later work at. So
Wow.
when Yeah, so when I was in college and I needed a job, I was like, I'll go work at the place that I love the most, that movie theater. And so I worked as an usher. I worked as a ticket salesperson. I worked concession, but I loved being an usher the best. And ushers are ushers because they don't want to deal with the public as much. That
Okay.
was me. And one day the manager asked me if I wanted to learn projection. And I said, yes, absolutely, because it also came with a raise. And so they taught me how to be a projectionist. It was 10 houses, so we had 10 projectors, and it was this long hallway. And I got so good, and all projectionists will tell you this. You can hear if one machine is off. Like you can just, you know what it should sound like. And it's such an auditory job. You can hear if something is wrong.
Wow.
Very interesting. And so with this craft, I knew that wherever I moved, I would have a job because not a lot of people knew this trade. And so everywhere I moved, I immediately applied to the cinema. And I worked in Pennsylvania, a couple of theaters there. I worked in Virginia. I trained film stunts in Virginia. I worked as a projectionist at the same time. And the last job I had before this other job was on an island off of Rhode Island called Block Islands. And I worked as a projectionist and manager of this one house movie theater. And I lived inside of the movie theater because it was like a stage theater. So there were dressing rooms in the back. And so I lived in one of the dressing rooms for the course of a summer, which is what my GoFundMe is about and what my film in Italy is going to be about. But then I moved to Los Angeles and there was only one place really that you could apply to at the time to be a projectionist. There's a couple of more houses now, but I ended up working at the Vista in Los Feliz, and that's where my last job was. And it was a blast. It was so much fun. And we had all kinds of really cool prints to show people. And it was such a specialty place because of the IB Tech Festival that we did. The Bottom Theater runs 16 millimeter. It's so fun. High recommend. Everybody should go there.
Everybody should go there. So now from your description, I want to know what is the best thing about being a projectionist, but also what is the most difficult thing?
Okay, the best thing is you get to look at art all day. Like every frame, like the YouTube channel says, is a painting. Every frame is a painting. It's so organized that you've got this team of people to put together this format or this format or this format for you to see. And you get to project it into a dark theater in front of an audience who is there to appreciate it. And just, it's kind of a feel good type of job to me. And the hardest thing about being a projectionist, the anxiety of it, because we did reel to reel, which is the top reel of a projector and the bottom reel of the projector, and the film runs through this way. And you had two projectors running so that when one was close to the end, you had to make sure that your timing was correct to push the changeover button to change over to the next projector. And hitting that just right so that there wasn't any dark space or you weren't cutting into the next scene too early so you missed dialogue. High stress for that perfection because you should be perfect.
Exactly. So was there like a moment which was like really grand for you, like a particular film that you were projecting for the first time, some anticipating moments? I want to know about it.
Oh my, okay, so one of my very favorite films is Howard Hawks' His Girl Friday with Cary Grant and Rosalind Russell. I just love it. I could just watch it all of the time. And I watched it at the New Beverly in Los Angeles many, many years ago for my birthday. They projected it on my birthday. I felt like it was just for me. And that print of that movie, I ended up film inspecting at the Vista, and I got to project it at the Vista. And it was, I have to say, it was the highlight of my career. I was giddy the whole time inspecting it. I took so many photos. You have to take photos anyway for scratches on the print and stuff like that. But I took a lot more than just what I was supposed to take. And then I projected it onto the screen, and I was on cloud nine the whole time.
What a beautiful, what a beautiful memory. I can visualize it now. Okay, so I want to know, how did you find the transition from, like 35 millimeter to digital projectors? Like, how did you go? Okay, I want to know everything because we have an expert here. Please
I
tell.
know. Okay, so the transition, it happened officially in America in 2015. Most of digital projectors were phased out, and then it happened around the world. And one of the main reasons that it happened, that a lot of people don't know this reason, unless you're in the industry, was to ship film canisters. So a film is a reel of movie that's 2,000 feet long per reel, and you get at least 5 to 8 reels for a movie, sometimes more, very few times less. And shipping those in these metal canisters costs about $5,000. To ship a digital, which is just like a digital hard drive disc that you can insert into a digital projector, is $500. And so the cost for filmmaking, yeah, it's maybe a little bit cheaper depending on how you do it, but the cost for shipping was one of the main reasons. So much more expensive. And so we lost this art form.
So, as you like described yourself as someone, a resurrectionist, and as a poet myself, and when you see beautiful art dying because people don't appreciate it anymore, what do you think is our mission, or it's on us to keep preserving the arts? Like, why do you think we should continue to keep doing it, to keep talking about it, to keep giving to the world before it loses it?
I think going to those cinemas that have film, and I know that's hard, and I'm saying that from a privileged position because I live in Los Angeles, where I can go to the Vista and I can go to the New Bev and I can go to other places that are showing 70 millimeter films. You can support it that way, or write articles or do channels like this in support of the art. Or when you're making movies, make your movies in film, because the depth is way better. Kurosawa would love you, and Quentin Tarantino would love you, and Christopher Nolan would love you. Um, yeah, just make the demand in your small way. Don't think about changing the world, because that's such a large thing. Think about changing your immediate community.
So I want to know about your Italian project, Teatro dell'Amore. Is that it? How far
Yeah.
are you in it, in the fundraising project, process? I want to know everything.
Oh yeah, so we're almost fully funded, which is great. I'm looking for just the last third of funding. We have talent attached to it. We're going to film in spring of 2025, and it's a co-production. Thank you. It's co-production between the team that I have in the States and the team that I have in Italy. And it's based very loosely on my life as a film projectionist living on an island. So it follows the story of this woman who is a movie theater manager and projectionist during the fall of film projection. And she's going through the worst heartbreak of her life. But she gets life and dating advice from her imaginary friend, Italian film icon, Marcello Mastroianni, who is also in love with her. And so the rule of my world is that the first film a projector projected, the characters in that film come to life and attach themselves as imaginary characters to the audience members. And so
Oh,
my film has Paul Newman and Cary Grant and Sidney Poitier and Monica Vitti in it.
wow.
And they can all talk to each other because they're imaginary friends, but they can't talk to each other's imaginary friend person. And so it follows Marcello, and it follows my protagonist Theo, and they can't ever touch because he's not real. He's kind of like the magic that an arc light bulb brings to the depth of a film. That's what Marcello's essence is. And when that light in the projector that projected him for the first time dies, which it's dying because they're changing into digital, he dies.
Oh, wow. So did you have like a similar heartbreak like Theo, or was it more like a drive?
What person doesn't have some kind of heartbreak, I think. So, I mean, like if your arm is the character and this is the furthest away you are from the character, Theo's like at my carotid, so close to me. So yeah, my heartbreak went into that story.
Wonderful. This is amazing. I can't wait to watch this film and I can't wait for you to like continue it. And okay,
Me
why
too.
Marcello Mastroianni? I love him, but I want to know the personal connection.
Yeah. So going through this heartbreak and studying his films and studying him and just being a fan of his made every woman that talked about Marcello said that they felt safe with him.
Mhm.
And I was like, that's such an interesting concept because I don't think that there's a lot of people, let alone men in the world that I could say that I feel safe with.
That's so true.
And I think that that's the environment that this particular protagonist of my story needed. She needed to feel safe, to be her own person.
This
Yeah.
is mind blowing. I can't wait for this film. Seriously, I will be following you every day, Leah. Seriously, to see
Yay.
when it comes out. Can't wait to review it also. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
You
Thanks,
all,
Jay.
you're welcome. You have a Scottish project too. Now, what is that about?
Oh my goodness. Okay, so we had development money, my producer and I, to travel to Scotland in March to go to the Glasgow Film Festival. And we made Expo North there, got us connections to a bunch of different filmmakers at the festival, and then got us connections to where I want to film, which is in Nairn in Scotland in the Scottish Highlands. And we went there, we met some historians and we met some experts at a museum. And my story is called Sister's Bell. And it's about these two sisters in the 1650s in Scotland performing abortions in the Highlands during both the height of the bubonic plague and the height of the Scottish witch trials. And I came up with this story because it was during the Kavanaugh hearings here in the States, um, for the Supreme Court, Brett Kavanaugh.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, oh my goodness, we're still in Salem. We're still being hunted and persecuted for saying, no, this truth happened to me. Well, no, it didn't. Blame the victim. This horrible thing never happened to you. This great man could never do something like that. And I thought, oh, because film is best in a message, not that I believe in messaging necessarily in art forms to that degree, but film is best talking about something in the past that happened at least 40 years ago and applying it to commentary what is happening today. And I was like, oh, we're still in a witch trial today. So I'm going to make this film as current commentary, but I'm going to set it in the 1650s.
Exactly. I think that even all horror movies are kind of interpretations of our latent fears and inner desires, and even the things we don't want to tell ourselves. Like one of the best things that I felt expressed my feelings with femininity, with my body, with motherhood, with children, with
Mhm.
even sexuality was
Mhm.
horror films. So it's definitely not about a message that I mean films that must have a message, but at the same time, it kind of comments on something, even the sensation or the feeling that you take from film
Oh
comments on
yeah,
something and touches something in you. So I feel like definitely even someone who can be out of the States like me would watch a film like you and would feel the idea of being hurt, of being accused just because you're the woman, and how some
exactly.
can get away with anything just because he's the man and he's a good man. And why would you do this? And then they will try to see you as a person and kind of criticize you and compare you to this man. So I totally feel like you can connect to that even if you're a woman from a different realm, a different universe.
Yeah, and you're right in saying that the subtext to anything is an emotion, right? And so the subtext of the emotion from my story is an older sister trying to protect a younger sister and the heartbreak that goes along with knowing that you can't.
Yeah, definitely. And you
Yeah.
can sometimes save people you love. So it's awesome. Your films are so poignant. I can't wait for them to get released. Okay, so ending on a light-hearted mood, hopefully.
Yeah.
Your podcast pitch. I'm gonna start following it from now. I want to know all about it.
Thank you. Okay, so Pitch is the love child of my creative partner, Angel Murphy, and I. And we had gone through this Sundance program that was teaching us a bunch of different things about filmmaking. And one of the things that it really honed in on was you need to have a strong pitch. And Angel is always encouraging me, work on your pitches. I'm like, but I hate doing it. And we came up with this idea of a podcast. It's a two-part podcast. The first part is free and it interviews different people in the industry, teaching you different points on how to pitch. Like we interviewed Liz Hanna, who wrote The Post. We interviewed Franklin Leonard, who runs Blacklist. And we interviewed, we're in season 2. So we have a lot of different interviews. And then the second part of that podcast is our paid portion of our podcast. It's pretty cheap. Um, and it has invited writers to come and pitch their scripts on our podcast. So they do who they are, why they wrote the story, what the story is about. And then we have the first 3 pages of their story performed by SAG actors.
Wow.
And then the writer's contact information. So really it's a catalog of pitches, which you don't have. Like, there's no schooling, there's not like a specific YouTube channel, except ours now, where it's this is how you pitch. This is an example of a good pitch, or this is an example of like, this is how you can improve on your pitching. And so we just wanted to give something as a resource to writers in the industry to help them because we wanted that help.
That's wonderful. I can't wait to listen to it. Seriously, it sounds awesome. And I also
Thank
think because I think I might want to write a script or something, I need to listen to what you guys say because it's so
Yeah,
important. So yeah, very
yeah,
educational. Okay.
yeah.
So before we end everything, what do you want to tell? Like, what do you have right now? What is going on with your life? What is your most haunted passion at the moment?
Oh man. I think my Italian project, I'm really gunning after that. We were supposed to film this year, but it got pushed. So now I'm like really super excited to get it done next spring. So I'm working on that and I'm going through and watching every single every single Marcello Mastroianni film, which is a lot of them, and working on my next poetry book. It won't take me 20 years to write it.
It's gonna be easier
Thank
this time.
easier this time. And then I'm doing a bunch of research for my Scottish script. I had written it, but then after I went to the Highlands, I realized there's a lot of the culture and the customs that I need to incorporate into the script. So I'm rewriting it based on that. And then I'm also going through and reading the Scottish witch trials from the 1600s from their National Archive so that I can pull dialogue and certain instances of how a witch trial was performed. And so all of those things. And then rescuing street animals. That's all I'm doing.
That's
Yeah.
the best thing in the world because
Yeah.
my parents kind of do this, so I kind of appreciate everyone who just goes out for this trade. Please take care of them. They need you.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Leah, it was an amazing time talking to you. Seriously, what a wonderful person. Thank you very much for talking to me.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye. Ciao.
Ciao.